Following on from our last instalment, the next thing that had to happen that we read about in Galatians 4 verse 4 in order to bring about our adoption is that Christ was to be born of a woman. In other words, that he needed to become a human being. And really there were two reasons why he did that. The first is that he might be able to die for us there at the cross of Calvary. That he might be a true substitute, someone who could take our place and bear the judgment for our sin upon himself. We know in the Old Testament there were a whole series of animal sacrifices for sin. But as Hebrews tells us, those blood of bulls and goats could not take away our sin. Because A, they were not perfect. Those animals were corrupted by sin. They were part of a fallen creation themselves. But secondly, they were not a true substitute. It was animal dying for human being. But we needed someone, a perfect human being, a sinless human being, who could truly take our place and be a true substitute for us and bear the judgment of God that is due to our sin. And so Christ came into this world as a human being in order that he might be that perfect and true substitute, someone who could truly take our place and bear the judgment and wrath of God for our sin upon himself. That in order to secure, of course, our salvation. But I think another interesting thing about this verse is the way that the Apostle Paul describes his becoming human. He doesn't say, God sent forth his Son and he became a human being. It says, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman. And so that indicates to us that Christ chose not simply to parachute into this world as a human being, quickly go and die on the cross and parachute out again, so to speak. But he chose to be born of a woman and go through the whole process of human development. Right from conception through to pregnancy, to being born as a baby, growing up as a child, developing into a teenager, and then reaching adulthood, and then as an adult going through death. He chose to experience the full life journey right from conception through to death. And he did that in order that he might fully experience what it's like for us to live life here in a fallen world, right from conception through to death. And part of the reason that he chose that way of becoming human was in order that he might fully understand and fully experience what it's like for us to live life as human beings in this fallen world. So that when we come to him with our troubles and our trials and our difficulties and our feelings, as we bring the situations of life to him, he can say that he understands. He can say that he's been there. He can say that he knows what it's like to live life as a human being. Therefore, in Hebrews 4, we read that we don't come to Christ as a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was tempted or tested in all points as we are, yet without sin. He lived the whole human life journey perfectly. And so when we come to him, he knows exactly what we need in order to live the whole of our life journey in a way which is pleasing to God. And I find that amazing about his incarnation, the technical term, if you like, we use to describe Christ leaving heaven and becoming a human being. Christ was not merely a man who claimed to be God, but he was a good God who became man. To be that perfect substitute for us at the cross, to secure our salvation, but also to experience life as a human being, that he might be better equipped and better understand our needs and issues as we go through life. And so that when we come to him with our concerns, he responds from a position of experience and understanding. What a wonderful Saviour we have. And the incarnation, which we often confine perhaps to one day, to Christmas Day, with a primary focus of how he came into the world to be a saviour for us. We find that the incarnation actually is a everyday truth that should impact the way in which we live our lives, knowing that we come to a Saviour who fully understands and has fully experienced life here on earth. And so I trust that thought will be of some help to you, and next time we'll move on to the third thing that needed to happen in order to bring about our adoption. God bless.